Cedric, you mentioned something. We're going to move on to our second segment about the Heisman Trophy. You mentioned a couple times Joe Burrow, and I think you and I are in agreement that he is the best player in the country. He and three other guys, including Chase Young from Ohio State, Justin Fields from Ohio State, and Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma, are Heisman finalists. But Cedric, it feels like everything has been trending towards Joe Burrow winning the Heisman for a really long time. I don't know if he wins by the biggest margin ever, but it feels like he is the obvious choice for winning the Heisman.
You know, Reggie Bush won like 90% of the vote in 2005 over Vince Young. And of course, people castigated my boy Kirk Bowles for voting for Reggie because we live in Austin, but Kirk Bowles was right. Reggie Bush was the best player. Now, Vince Young showed up a month later and won the national championship for Texas. But
pretty good consolation.
Yes, and I think we know Kirk. I always give Kirk credit because if he didn't vote if Vince had won the Heisman, maybe he shows up like 30 pounds overweight after the banquet circuit, you know. And so with no motivation, because Vince told me, he goes, I go, after the vote was announced, I know you were upset. What did you do? He goes, I called Rod Wright, who was the senior captain. I called Rod Wright and go, let's get those boys ready. It's going to be showtime in LA. So, and it turned out Vince Young got what he wanted, and that was a national title. So, Joe Burrow, I mean, what can you say? 80% completion percentage, piloting arguably the best team in the country. He's done nothing wrong. He's been wire to wire, the single most dominant quarterback in the game. And so I think it's going to be a runaway. I mean, when I saw the finalists, I was very happy as a Heisman voter because it kind of lined up with kind of what I was thinking without divulging any information. But yeah, I just think Joe Burrow is amazing, and the LSU Tigers have been great all year. He's been great at the helm, and I anticipate very little drama coming out of New York City on Heisman Saturday.
I have a good friend who's a big LSU fan, has been for a long time, and over again over the years, as they've had these great defenses and they've had great skill players at wide receiver, at running back, and almost without fail, every offseason, at least one of those wide receivers would transfer because they didn't have a quarterback good enough to get him the ball. It happened almost every year. We always talked about, when is LSU going to get a quarterback and really ascend to the top, because they have all the pieces except for the quarterback. Well, guess what? They have a quarterback who is elite, who is fantastic. Joe Burrow is great. And Cedric, it's interesting to me as we talk about these Heisman finalists. We're going to set Chase Young over to the side for a second. But these three quarterbacks, Justin Fields transferred to Ohio State from Georgia. Jalen Hurts transferred to Oklahoma from Alabama. Joe Burrow transferred to LSU from Ohio State. It's like a big circular mess. But to me, all this talk about these transfers in college football, it isn't going away. These guys are going to continue to motivate guys to say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance somewhere else. Because look how good it has worked out for these guys. The transfer train is out of the station, and it isn't slowing down anytime soon. There's going to be one win the Heisman, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the other two finish 2 and 3 in the voting this year.
Me neither. And guess what? You only get to play one quarterback. The two quarterback system, that doesn't work, Jen.
No.
If big-time college football, a coach that's going with two quarterbacks doesn't have a quarterback. So the fact that these guys have transferred, they went to a new place, and they made their bones. They made great plays. They are in contention for championships. The fact that all of that happened sends a message to the younger players. You know what? That guy is better than me. And the coach knows he's better than me. And he beat me out for the position, but I know there's somewhere in the United States of America where I could go start. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm a little bit more against it when it's like a receiver or a defensive end, where there's more of that position on the field, mm-hmm. but there's only one quarterback.
Yeah.
And when you know you're not the guy, I don't have anything against you going for greener pastures. Worked out for Jalen Hurts, worked out for Joe Burrow, worked out for Justin Field, worked out for Kyler Murray, worked out for Baker Mayfield. There's a laundry list of great players it's worked out for. And guess what? Mr. Mayfield and Mr. Murray are making fat coin as a result of transferring. Good for them. The transfer train is rolling, and we're going to put a little bit more coal in that engine because it's going to be needed. There's more transfers coming because the precedent has been set, Jen. You don't have, just because you didn't get worked out in that first gig, second gig might be the gig that puts you over the top. Yeah. We've got examples going to New York City.
Yeah, for sure. You know, last thing on the Heisman that I wanted to mention was the fact that, you know, I think all four of these guys are deserving of those Heisman finalist spots. I am a little bit surprised that we didn't see either of the top running backs in the country get into that finalist spot. Now, the finalists, as you know, Cedric, and most people do, it's not a set number. Some years it's 3, some years it's 5. It really can fluctuate, but normally when the votes come out, you see sort of a natural line of demarcation that says, that's why these guys were finalists and not these guys below them. So I assume Chuba Hubbard from Oklahoma State and Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin are likely in that next batch of vote getters. But
don't forget J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins, true. I have to think the Ohio State 3, you just mentioned the third of the 3, probably split some votes, and I'm going to guess that Hurts and Burrow are probably 1 and 2 because they were sort of obvious finalists, top 3 on the ballot for most people. And then those next 2 guys from Ohio State probably split a lot of votes. Then you're probably going to see those 3 running backs in that next line. But it is interesting to have, I mean, I think those 3 running backs, and I saw a lot of Chuba Hubbard. I think he's fantastic, and I think those other 2 are somewhere in the same vein as Chuba Hubbard. But those type of guys, if you don't have sort of the split the way it was at the top, I would not be surprised in a different setting, in a different year, that one of those guys gets to go to New York. But some really great individual talent out there. No wide receivers made it this year, even though we had some great, fantastic, electric type of talent at wide receiver. But it seemed to me, Cedric, that it's set up where you did have an obvious 2 and then maybe 3 and 4 if you're a voter out there. It's interesting the way it worked out, though, with the finalists. No running backs, no wide receivers.
Yeah, and you think about it, it's a quarterback's award, Jen.
It has become that way.
I think my first year voting was 2009, and I went with Mark Ingram, and maybe is he the last running back to win the Heisman?
I think Derrick Henry has come since then.
Derrick Henry, those 2. Yeah. So, yeah, it's largely a quarterback award now, and it's, just like the regular season MVP of the NFL. It's a quarterback's award now. Chuba Hubbard is good as anyone I saw all year. J.K. Dobbins is a grown man. Jonathan Taylor, grown man. Those guys will make a lot of money on the next level.
Yeah.
But this Heisman Trophy now has gone the way of the golden boys with the golden arm, and those are the quarterbacks. So the quarterbacks always get the hot chicks, and now they always get the Heisman. Long live the quarterbacks.
I'm glad you said that and not me.